Welcome to the Sportscast, August 30th, 2018. Our college football preview, part 3, is happening right now. And to have part 3, you have to have Ryan Christa. Ryan, welcome to the Sportscast.
Thank you, Santiago. It's, when you wake up on a day like this, it's kind of like Christmas for college football and football fans. You just want to hit somebody. And luckily, to the people around me, I haven't clobbered anybody yet, but I got that feeling, though.
It could get crazy. Now, like I have asked Tyler, are you more of a college football or a NFL football guy?
I guess I kind of follow a lot more of the news of college football when it comes on a normal weekend sighting next week and when the NFL is going. I'm more apt to, spread out my time on a college football Saturday. It's on from, noon till, you probably can watch games till 1 or 2 in the morning. But, I'm not going to sit down for 14 hours. But I'm going to spread my time out. It's more about, the quantity. But on an NFL Sunday, it's more about the quality. You might watch, you don't get as much because, there's not as many games. But, I do love, the NFL and, my Denver Broncos. Very
good comment about that. I think you're right. I think NFL has better quality and college football is not as much. I mean, you're talking about a good, amazing team versus a small college in Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, college football, these next first couple of weeks, you're going to have some stellar, non-conference games against some teams that don't play each other very much, but then you're also going to get, a lot of games against mismatched teams, and you're going to see a lot of blowouts, but, that's kind of just part of, the college football landscape.
and let's get the audience straight here. Ryan is SportsCenter. Ryan watches almost every sport. So, I mean, obviously, just to ask him if he likes college football better than NFL, then that's kind of an iffy question because he might like them both equally.
Yeah, that's a good, am I geared up? Am I all in college football mode this weekend? Absolutely, because it's, tonight you got the 4th preseason NFL game, which is in, other than if you want to, which his only purpose is to find, the last 5 or 6 spots of an NFL roster, that's what we're really playing for tonight. But, from now, from tonight till Monday night when Florida State and Virginia Tech play, it's all about college football.
That is correct. Let's stick with college football. NFL, there's a lot of talk about that. Obviously, the whole Aaron Rodgers thing and everything, but we'll talk about that towards the end if we have time. But this is a college football preview number 3, and we'll start with the we'll actually start with the ACC because that is your favorite conference because your team, Florida, is in the ACC Coastal. No. Wait.
No, Florida's in the SEC. Florida State is
my bad. ACC. My bad. I confused, guys. Sorry about that. Let's start with the ACC. We got the ACC Atlantic, which is dominated by Clemson, and ACC Coastal, which I predict will be dominated by Miami. How do you see the ACC?
From years past, you could almost say this is a one-team league, for a long time, and that's being Florida State and everybody else. But, the tides have turned, several years ago, Dabo Sweeney, gets this interim job at Clemson, and little by little, he builds a superpower down in South Carolina. They got great resources there, a great fan base. It's kind of like, sometimes you get in the ACC, you got more basketball-centered schools rather than football-centered schools. But when you got Clemson, you've got an SEC fan base in the ACC, which so that gives them a lot of resources. And they got obviously Dabo is one of the premier coaches in America right now about building a program. Not necessarily a guy that, isn't a great X's and O's guy, but he's a great motivator, great, he's kind of a CEO, and that's what you got to be in college football. That's what makes Saban great. Is that yes, he knows his football, but he knows how to build a winner. Just like CEOs of Fortune 500 companies have to provide leadership for their company, and that's what a great college football coach is. And when we talk about the ACC, so obviously now you got to start with Clemson, and but Florida State is not to be forgotten. They had a weak year in their standards last year, going 6-6 in the regular season. Jimbo Fisher's out, Willie Taggart's in. DeAndre Francois back starting quarterback. So I do think that team, Florida State, while they may not be the team they were a couple years ago, it's not going to be walked over. Where they at Clemson at their place this year. I do predict Clemson will win that division, but I don't think Florida State should be forgotten in the that side of the Atlantic Coast Conference.
So who will win the ACC? Who will be in the ACC championship, and who will win the ACC?
Well, when we talk about the other side with Miami, being the team, getting the most, clubs going into the season, we're going to find out a lot about Miami on Sunday night against LSU. There's a team that started, win their first, 11 games of the year last year, and then they fell to Pittsburgh. Got blew out by Clemson in the ACC championship, and then lost, practically a home game in the Orange Bowl against Wisconsin. So, they're, even when they won games last year, they were kind of like some of the games they won were kind of by divine intervention. It seemed like they got it. People who had seen them play knew that really wasn't a true 11-0 team. I think Mark Richt is, again, great coach, great CEO of that team. But, I think they overachieved this year. And I think this year, though, with a lot of pieces back, this team, could kind of definitely, I feel like they can kind of coast through their side of the conference, which I don't think's as strong as the other side. And I think they will meet Clemson again as a rematch of the ACC championship, but again, Clemson will win and probably move on to the college football playoff.
And do you think Boston College will beat Miami, Clemson, or FSU?
That's kind of, that team everybody's talking about, Yeah, you got a good running back, good quarterback. When Boston College is good, they run the ball great, and they play great defense. And this is Steve Adagio's kind of got things going last year at Boston College. They on a Friday night they destroyed Florida State, which is kind of their statement game of the year last year. Have a lot of good momentum going. What's that going to equal to this year? Could they get to 9-3? That'd be probably the absolute high ceiling. I feel like they're more of an 8-4 to 7-5 team. Yeah, they just don't have those, great playmaker for this team. But in the end, I think they're going to struggle beating some of the great teams in their conference.
And will Trevor Lawrence from Clemson start, or will have a touch on the ball this year?
He's gonna play. Whether he starts, I don't know if he's going to start. Kelly Bryant. I struggle. Kelly Bryant, doesn't have as much physical tools as Trevor Lawrence does. He doesn't throw the ball as great. He's a good athlete, Kelly Bryant, but I think he's a great. It's kind of a word quarterbacks don't like to be persuaded as, but perceived as, but a game manager. He runs their offense well. He can run himself. He's an accurate thrower. Doesn't have that great deep ball, but I think I think the fan base is going to be clamoring for Lawrence at any site of trouble this year. So, but I think they will blow out a lot of teams, and I think Lawrence will get a shot. But that's kind of $1 million question. If they lose a game, I think Lawrence will get his chance. But let me bring you back to about 4 years ago when Deshaun Watson was a freshman. He was the kind of same situation. Deshaun Watson was a highly regarded quarterback coming out, and they had a returning quarterback named Willie Korn. They played an opening game against Georgia. They struggled mightily, with Willie Corn playing. Next week, Deshaun Watson, comes in, starts the game, and the rest is history for Clemson football. So I think that's kind of, what people have been looking at. So they're going to wait for a game where Kelly Bryant doesn't provide the dynamic offense that Clemson fans are used to, and then insert Trevor Lawrence, and I think you got your starting quarterback for the next 3 years.
Trevor Lawrence, the future of the Clemson football team. Let's go to the Big 12, the weakest conference. Me and Tyler were saying, I got Oklahoma winning it. How do you see the Big 12?
It's kind of, the standard Oklahoma, but, when you lose a player like Baker Mayfield, how do you move on and become that, pick up right where you left off? Kyler Murray was another highly regarded quarterback who went to Texas A&M a couple years ago. Was unhappy there. It's playing time. They had 2 5-star quarterbacks. Him and Kyle Allen got there. And they both ended up leaving. No mistakes, but he ends up at Oklahoma. And playing baseball there. Gets drafted by the A's. So that's pretty unique. So he's a little bit distracted in the sense of been busy playing baseball. But he's a natural athlete. Runs that be pretty good running Lincoln Riley's offense. But in the Big 12, it's all about offense, and you got to be able to score 30, 40 points a game just to survive. It's a different type of football than than a lot of especially conferences like the Big Ten, which are born on defense. Big 12 is, has their calling card on offense. Spread offenses, up-tempo, a lot of plays. Everybody kind of runs that similar style framework of their offense.
And who will finish off? I do think. Go ahead.
I'm going to go to wild card here. You and Tyler both liked Oklahoma. I'm going to give you West Virginia.
Yes, which I have them as number 2. And I guess you're thinking TSU is right behind those two. TCU.
Who'd you say?
You
TCU,
think?
Yeah, TCU is TCU is like the team of of the Big 12. Since they've come in the league, they don't get the 5-star necessary athletes that flood the rosters of other marquee teams. But they, Gary Patterson, who's a fine coach, gets the most out of his team. I do think they lost a couple of pieces. They're going to be hard to fill on both sides of the ball, but I do think their third place is probably where a safe spot for TCU. Or I think the Texas Longhorns, Tom Herman, his second full year there, I think they're going to take, they're starting to get those recruits that they weren't getting with Charlie Strong out of Texas, And if it's not this year, it's going to be next year where they're going to be making a run at the Big 12 title.
And there you go. That is our Big 12 prediction, the weakest conference of the top 5. Let's go to the Midwest, the Big 10. As you know in news, Ohio State, the coach, Urban Meyer, got into a little bit of a trouble, just got 3-game suspension, little boo-boo. And they say it's open. It's wide open. Or is it not wide open?
That side of the conference is very wide open, Santiago. When you've got 4 powerhouses, and this is where I think the Big Ten, if they beat up on each other in that side of the conference, they could be at the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs. If multiple teams, have 2 losses, you got, the Big Ten East, you got Ohio State, Michigan State, and Penn State. All 4 of those teams are playoff caliber teams, But, like I said, are they going to beat up on each other? I think Ohio State has the most overall talent. Penn State probably is the most established, especially playmaker in Trace McSorley. But, they have a lot to fill in there. Saquon Barkley was a great player who did a lot of stuff, not just running the ball, but kick returning. They lost two great receivers, a tight end. Are they going to be able to, and their offensive coordinator is now the coach of Mississippi State, Joe Moorhead. But I do, Chase McSorley is that type of player, Baker Mayfield, that could take a team on his back, and I definitely think they could win the Big Ten East. But the safe pick, would be Ohio State on that side, but Michigan brings, fourth year of Jim Harbaugh. They returned a great defense, probably the best in the conference. And now you're bringing in Shea Patterson, who had a decent, career at Mississippi. More, but Michigan's all going to come down to how can they protect Shea Patterson or any of the other quarterbacks that may play this year.
So you say Michigan will win the Big Ten East?
I've been flipping back and forth. I'm gonna go with Michigan.
Michigan. Harbaugh comes through. The Big Ten West. I have Wisconsin. It's a weaker part of the conference, but what do you think about the Big Ten West?
Yeah, I definitely think Wisconsin will go through, but this, they got a lot of pieces, kind of the underrated team always in the Big Ten, the forgotten, power. All they do is play defense and run the ball, which is, ever since Barry Alvarez was the coach there. Jonathan Taylor, great freshman season. I do think they win the Big Ten West, but I think the Big Ten West, isn't going to be a cakewalk as it was last year. I think they're going to stub their toe in one of their conference games on our side, whether it be, it could be any of those teams, Purdue, Northwestern, and Nebraska maybe. I don't think Scott Frost will, win a lot of games this year in Nebraska, but I do think he's going to get a big upset, and I think that could be when they play Wisconsin this year.
And who will win the Big Ten?
If it's going to be Michigan and Wisconsin, I'm going to go Michigan.
Michigan wins the Big Ten. It could be. I mean, Wisconsin doesn't sound too convincing, but on paper they do. They're predicted to go all the way. Let's go to the Pacific Ocean. The Pac-12. You got the Pac-12 South and you got the Pac-12 North. And I chose USC to win the Pac-12 South, which contains USC, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, and UCLA, headed by Chip Kelly. Who do you have for the Pac-12 South?
Talent, you got to go USC. Compared to the other teams in that conference, I don't think there's any comparison. But, if Wisconsin's underrated in the Big Ten, then Utah is underrated in the Pac-12. Every year they play defense and they run the ball. If Utah can develop, Tyler Huntley at the quarterback position, and being able to stretch the field and throw that ball, I do think with USC coming to their house this year, that's going to be the game that decides that side of the conference. If we're having this talk 365 days from now and things are going the way they're going, I think UCLA will be the pick of my. I'm a Chip Kelly fan. I enjoy watching him. There might not be anybody who changed college football more in this generation than Chip Kelly has, because you watch a game on Saturday pre-Chip Kelly coming to Oregon, the game looked totally different than it does. Everybody runs those up-tempo offenses now, and no one huddles very rarely. The offenses might be schemed a little different, but they all got a little piece of Chip Kelly in them, I believe. So I think he's going to do the same thing he did at Oregon. He loves the West Coast. He's comfortable there. And it may be not next year, but it might be the year after. But he's going to bring in athletes and speed, and he's going to really bring up that rivalry between USC and UCLA back to importance.
So you got USC, LA winning the whole the whole Pac-12 South.
I'm going to go. For this year, I'm gonna go USC. But I would not be surprised with Utah. But I'm going to go USC.
I got USC, and then Pac-12 North, the probably the most competitive part of the Pac-12. You got Washington, Stanford, Oregon, California, Washington State, and Oregon State. I got Washington to win the Pac-12 and the Pac-12. I mean, Pac-12 North and the Pac-12.
This is the one that, I'm pretty confident in USC. I'm never confident in this side of the conference. You got Stanford, who's always kind of a wild card. They probably got the best player in, maybe one of the best players in college football, definitely the best player in this conference, and that's Bryce Love. Is he able to hold up injury-wise this year for 12 games? I just don't know if they have enough around him this year, in Stanford to win their division. Oregon has the best quarterback, Justin Hubert, but we learned last year that if he doesn't play, that team doesn't go. And Washington probably has the most complete team. Miles Gaskin's a good running back. Jake Browning's a good quarterback. I just never think they're a great team. I think they're a really good team, and 48 hours from now when they play against Auburn, we're really going to find out about Washington. I've been leaning, obviously I think the game of the conference, this side of the conference, like USC or Utah is on that side. Oregon, Washington is going to be on that side of the conference. I'm going to go with the Quack Attack here, Santiago. I'm going to hope Herbert stays healthy. I think they're going to win that side of the conference and play USC in the Pac-12 championship.
And who will win the Pac-12?
I'm going to go USC. I think too much overall talent.
USC comes back and hopefully get back to their glory days back in the late 2000s.
Let me bring you back to one more unique point, about coaching in the Pac-12. I know they're not really going to be a factor, and I don't think they're going to be a factor anytime soon, especially if this hire doesn't work out. Herm Edwards coming to Arizona State is very, very unique.
Huge.
He's an unconventional coach, even when he was in the NFL. He's kind of been a little bit unconventional here in college. This whole hire kind of blew up. They paid Todd Graham, the former coach, $9 million just to walk, and the plan was for everybody else on the staff to stay. And Herm Edwards really, being kind of a hands-off type coach and just being really just a true CEO. But a matter of him getting hired, both coordinators quit or found other jobs, and now they they really have to restart this whole plan they had. But I think that hire could end up being really great or really disastrous.
How about Kevin Sumlin?
Kevin Sumlin inherits, a pretty good situation. Arizona Khalil Tate kind of fits what he wants to do offensively with the spread option. They just don't have a whole lot on the offensive or defensive line in Arizona. If he's given enough time, I think Kevin Sumlin, without the pressure of A&M and playing in the SEC, will be successful. Whether that just means winning 9 or 10 games consistently, that's probably what is going to be expected of him at Arizona in a couple of years. But right now, I think it's going to be a fun team to watch with Khalil Tate this year, but not really a team that's going to compete for a division or especially a conference title.
Well, there you have it. That is the Pac-12 prediction. Ryan says USC, and I say Washington will win the Pac-12. Let's go to the almighty SEC. SEC East contains Georgia, South Carolina.
Santiago,
yeah.
It just means, right?
What happened?
That's this SEC, their slogan, it just means more. So,
well, we got the SEC East: Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and the SEC West: Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas. Wow, this is a loaded conference. Just reading it all out. Even the lower table teams are pretty good. Let's start with the SEC East. People are saying Georgia. I'm saying Georgia. What does Ryan say?
It's got to be Georgia, Santiago. You know that breaks my heart. I bleed blue and orange. I chomp till I die, but not this year. I believe Dan Mullen was a great hire for the Gators. Hopefully he's as good hire as Georgia made with Kirby Smart. Who else has made that much change? That quickly. From basically going, having an average football team they inherited to, really one half away from winning the national championship. They do lose a lot on defense. I think they lose tons on defense. They were lucky that a lot of the players that could have gone in the NFL the year before stayed because, they really wanted to do something big like they did last year. They lose 2 great running backs, but, the SEC East is, I think, will become, tougher. I think Mullen is a good hire. I think Pruitt is a good hire. I think, Stoops in Kentucky, they're going to compete. But, Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt. Derek Mason does the best he can with what he has. They might have a good year here and there, but they're not really going to compete. But I will think it's going to really come back down to the big three in the SEC East starting next year with Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. But this year, it's all Bulldogs in that side of the conference.
Georgia has to take the advantage of the rebuilding in Florida because Florida will be built for 2019. Let's go for the SEC West. We got the powerhouse Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas. And as a given, Alabama should win this. They have the Iron Bowl at home. Who do you have?
The old slogan in Santiago, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you know how many quarterbacks you have. You don't have a quarterback.
Ooh,
last year, last year Jalen Hurts, was able to win games, play good enough to win games, make enough plays to win games. And then, when it all came down to the most important game, he got benched. Tua came off the bench, saved the game, won the game with a great throw. And now Tua goes from a backup to the Heisman Trophy leading candidate. That's crazy. Issues like this can really divide the locker room. I know Nick Saban is, the best for a reason. And he's got a plan, but right now he's naming co-stars, which is,
It's not good. It's not good.
But, I think, they got Louisville in the opening game, which is good. I think it's perfect because it's good enough for either quarterback. They're really not going to be a challenge just because Louisville's in a rebuilding phase right now. But, good enough competition where you can really tell, which quarterback, can take the lead. So, it's an extremely important game for tomorrow night for Alabama, not to say to lose, because I don't think that's even possible right now, but to figure out the rest of the season. When you just named, 5 really good teams they're going to have to go against in that conference.
Yeah. But if you had to choose from the 2 quarterbacks, who would you be your starter? Would it be 2 out, or would it be Jalen?
Tua is, extremely gifted, seem to run the offense well. But it's hard to tell because, teams didn't really prepare for Tua. Last year, Georgia, was prepared for Jalen Hurts, and they did a great job against Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is limited throwing the ball, accuracy-wise, definitely. Good arm, but, he can't, when you force him to throw the ball and be accurate, that's when Jalen Hurts struggled, and that's what Georgia did. But that's what Tua does well. He's accurate, got a good arm. I think ultimately Tua will win because he just does more things better than Jalen. So, but with this new redshirt rule, here's an important fact to note is that Jalen Hurts graduates in December. If he's plays under 4 games, he will still have 2 years of eligibility left, transfer next year, and he could be the biggest college free agent in
Ever.
college football history here.
That's a good fact to know.
So, he doesn't even have to sit. He could go I think he will be a starting quarterback next September, not at Alabama. But that's just, I think if they figure, this out, this week and Alabama gets rolling, they win the conference, and that's my pick. But I think there's going to be some entertaining games, especially, I know they home against Mississippi State and Auburn, which helps. But let me circle one game for you. In 2 weeks, when they go down to Oxford, Mississippi, Alabama laid a whooping on Ole Miss last year. But remember who beat Alabama 2 years in a row, and that would be Mississippi. And I think, if they can make enough stops, Mississippi will win that football game.
Wow.
That's my bold point of the year.
Bold
prediction of the year. But
even with the suspension of the 2 quarterbacks the first game. Well, yeah, they got plenty of time to come back.
Well, Mississippi State. I'm talking about Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Okay, so you say Ole Miss is the spoiler.
Yeah, because that's gonna. If Tua is starting that game, and that's Tua's first road start of his career in a hostile environment, I think Ole Miss will be jacked up because Ole Miss can't go to a bowl game this year. That is their biggest game on their schedule, and they will be ready to play that game.
Wow, good point. That's something that we'll probably never hear from Justin Riley, our other Sportscats commentator.
I think that's Justin Riley. I don't, he's got a lot of great points, but he's Alabama in the mind, that's for sure.
Yeah, he has that tunnel vision. It's just
perfect. And this is another exception. Is I do think, like I said, I think they'll stub their toe at Ole Miss. But, they'll still win their division. And ultimately, I think there'll be another classic showdown at the Mercedes-Benz between Georgia and Alabama for the SEC championship. And I'll say Alabama does get through.
Which, by the way, they will also host the Super Bowl.
Yeah, big year.
So I was they got a couple good games going on in 2019. Okay, so this is part of the show where you name your top 4. This is my top 4 to make it to the playoffs. Alabama, Washington, Wisconsin, and Clemson. What's yours?
I'm going to go Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, and USC.
USC. I think we have 2 different teams. That sounds good. It should be good. I'm glad we have the playoff system. I think it should be 6 max. Like having a wild card, games, and then like the top 2 just have a bye week or something. So
yeah, I'm used to say college football net. The group. The Power 5 does provide a lot of great football, and they're bigger and they're stronger. But when you want to be entertained, you watch a lot of Group of 5 football, and there's a lot of good teams. Like a UCF last year. Were they one of the 4 best teams? No, but they you want to give them something to play for. And I would love to see them getting the best Group of 5 team get a chance to at least playing the big boys. In the playoff. But until we go to 6 or 8 teams, that's never really going to happen.
And with the top 4, who wins it? I mean, who will go to the championship and who will win it?
I'm going to say I'm going to go with another rematch of Clemson and Alabama.
Ooh.
With Clemson.
Keeping it conservative. With Clemson winning it, right?
Yeah. I know it's like you said, it's a pretty conservative, bland pick, but when you go talent for talent, those are the 2 most talented teams I believe in the country. So
you made a few good points about the whole quarterback issue. I think having 2 co-starters, that's not good. I think you got to have 1 quarterback starter, stick with him for the rest of the season, and because a lot of psychology is going to happen between Tua and Jalen, so you got to keep it with 1. But we'll see what happens. Maybe Nick Saban is the genius. Maybe he'll make it work. So we'll see what happens. And that wraps up our college football preview. Actually, we do have predictions. Hold on. Let's get back into the...
I think Auburn, they get this victory here. They're in a 2-game losing streak. We're talking about Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They're in a 2-game losing streak at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and they don't want to go 3 in a row with that stadium.
You don't, but that's a big game. I mean, we're talking about number 6 Washington against Auburn. That really starts off the season with a bang.
Yeah, and I think it's a big game for Washington. They kind of see Auburn, with an hour drive, I guess, from Auburn to Atlanta. So it's they'll have a huge home field advantage. So
should be a doozy. Notre Dame, Michigan and Notre Dame.
I'm gonna say Michigan.
Miami, LSU at the AT&T Cowboy Stadium.
Miami.
And Virginia Tech at Florida State in Tallahassee.
This is a tough game, back and forth. I'm going to go Florida State just because they're home.
And for honorable mention, Liberty at Army.
Well, that's next week, but how about Liberty ODU?
Okay, well, yeah, go ahead. We'll see.
First ever home game for our alumni. First ever home FBS game. You got to go with the Liberty Flames this week. I'll be pulling hard for Turner Gill and the boys to get that victory.
There you go, and that is our college football preview. College football begins tomorrow night. Probably the biggest game.
Let me before we go. I'm going to get.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my upset special of the week. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I can't wait for this game. I'm going to say the Lane Train goes into Norman, Oklahoma, and that game goes down to the last minute or two with FAU and Oklahoma.
That's a big game. That's right. That'd be on Saturday, September 1st, 12 p.m., and that's a big match for FAU. So we'll see how the Lane Train does in second year, and maybe turn that school around. He gets paid $1 million a year, right? I think.
Oh, more than that. Probably about that. He signed a 10-year. I mean, Santiago, the previous coach in 3 years won 9 games. He's on a 10-game winning streak right now.
Ooh, sounds.
That's his coach. But he had some tough situations, at USC, but he had sanctions. He was going, it was a tough situation for him. I think this is rebuilding, He rebuilt his, offensive mind with Alabama, and now he's rebuilding himself as a great head coach. This time next year, we're probably talking about Lane Kiffin at a Power 5 head coaching job.
We'll see, unless he wants to stick with his team so he can make the team go to a higher conference. But that's another show to talk about. College football preview number 3 is wrapped up. Let's go to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers getting a good extension. What are your thoughts?
It's a lot of money. Cynthia. Well, in the salary cap here, when you really have to pick and choose if you're giving out this humongous amount of money. I know Aaron Rodgers has meant the world to the Packers franchise. They don't want to see him leave, and they want him to retire as a Packer, and this pretty much solidifies that's going to happen. This is, kind of a thank you for all he's done for the organization, and hope to, make one more run or two at the Super Bowl. But the negative side of when you do that, you really put a, hindrance on your organization to fill up a competitive roster, because that's a lot of money going at the salary cap each and every year. That's why you see players like Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack demanding high contracts, but their organizations are standing firm that, it just doesn't work. They can't be giving out these huge contracts because, if you want to build a Super Bowl champion, everybody's got to buy into that.
Aaron Rodgers will have a $134 million extension. He'll be getting more than $80 million before March, and the bulk of that is a $57.5 million signing bonus. He'll be the highest guaranteed money quarterback or player in the NFL. And yeah, good for him. It feels like a Kobe Bryant deal. What they gave him in his last couple of years with the Lakers. So, and what will happen with Khalil Mack? Will he get traded?
I don't know if he'll get traded. You never get equal value in a trade like that. Basically, I think you're going to have a standstill. He's eventually going to report probably. He might even report after this last preseason game. It's everything you hear on the radio and the internet. There's just no. They're not even talking, this is not a good, situation.
Yeah.
On board of understands what he's doing. There's not gonna. I don't think you're gonna see him. While they might not be talking John Gruden and Khalil Mack, I think there's an understanding of why he's doing that, and he's on the same board, which is kind of good for Khalil Mack. So when he does return, he's not going to be on the bad side of a new coach. Eventually he's going to sign. He's going to report because he's going to lose a lot of money in fines, but he's just kind of making a point that he feels like he deserves more money than he's getting paid.
And the Jets have made Sam Darnold their number one starter. Is this a good move by the Jets? Is this good for Sam Darnold? Or what difference does it make?
This is a huge move. They basically, the Jets are known for not being the smartest franchise ever sometimes, but they basically picked Teddy Bridgewater for nothing. You didn't have to give up much to get Teddy Bridgewater. Going in and trading for a third-round pick, which is awesome for the Jets. The guy that didn't start a regular season game for them, and he ends up getting a third-round pick for it. And now you basically have to start. I think they weren't expecting Sam Darnold to be this ready to play right now. Does that mean he's going to have success? I don't think so right now. But I do think that he will have long-term success with this franchise. He's just got everything. I think we talked about before the draft, he was definitely the most polished, ready-to-go NFL quarterback from that group that got picked in the first round.
The Jets will have a franchise quarterback, and I think it's Sam Darnold. And he'll definitely last longer than Mark Sanchez. And is Teddy Bridgewater the future of the Saints?
The Saints basically said that yesterday. Drew Brees is, I don't know what, you got 1-2 more years left, probably.
We say that every year.
It all depends, We say that, but every year he comes out and throws for almost a record-setting amount of yards. What Drew Brees has got going for him now is that he's got Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara running the ball, so when you've got a good running game, it takes a little less pressure off of you. You're not going back. You're not throwing. You're probably getting better pass protection if you can run the ball. So they're probably adding a couple of years to his. But, you basically, if something does happen to Drew Brees, you've got a quarterback ready to step in. You won't take too much of a step back.
And I think Bridgewater is a very good quarterback. And I think if anything happens, I think it'll be a nice move in. To be the starting quarterback once Brees leaves, or if something ever happens. That is our NFL. Little preview of NFL. College football had the bigger piece of the pie, but NFL is definitely going to come up. A lot of people are doing some fantasy. And a random question: what round in fantasy do you choose your quarterback?
Well, it depends who you're picking, how many people, but, in most scoring system, you want to, touchdowns are worth so much, and depending yards, what your points are for how many yards you accumulate, you probably want to get your big-time scoring running backs first. I would say end of the first, definitely by the second round.
I say the fourth. I get the running backs and the wide receivers out of the way first.
Yeah, it all depends on like I said, people in the league, there's a lot of starting quarterbacks, but some of them just pass. just toss more touchdowns than the others. So it's you can't go wrong. Picking your franchise quarterback, whether it's in the first, second, third, or in your case, the fourth round.
There you go. Well, Ryan, Christa, thanks for coming on. How can people reach you?
Probably the best off is Twitter, Mad Dog Report 18, Facebook. Look me up, Ryan Christa. Yeah.
And which game will be the biggest game of the weekend, or which one you'll be more paying attention to this weekend?
Well, my house will be decorated blue and orange, but that's not going to matter too much because hopefully the Gators roll over Charleston Southern. But the game that got my heart, though, will probably be Liberty ODU. Going back to our days of Liberty, I stood in many games where there was 100 people there at that game, and and no one else on campus really cared. And now we're going to have 25 people at a game on Saturday, which is an extremely big deal in my case. But where my TV set's going to be Saturday, the most important game we talked about is probably going to be Washington and Auburn. That's probably the biggest effect on college football for
position-wise.
The most interesting game, is probably on Sunday night for me is LSU and Miami.
Yeah,
because
that game I'll be watching, and we'll just see what Miami's all about. Will they continue that trend onto this year?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered in that game for sure.
The Miami of old, the U of the 80s, U of the 90s, and the early 2000s, will that dynasty come back? We'll find out. 2018-19 college football season. Ryan, Christa, thanks for coming on to the Sportscast.
Sounds good. Thank you, Santiago. Love you, Mindy and Cleet.